Hello, Lucid Dream Magazine listeners. Today we're joined with Christo Bowman from Bad Sons.
Hi, Christo.
Hey, how's it going? How are you?
We're good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. At rehearsal.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about their upcoming tour, their sophomore album Disappear Here, and their upcoming Baltimore show that was on March 11th.
Or it's going to
Yes.
be in March 11th.
Yeah. So last time you hit Baltimore, it was supposed to be 2 years ago, but it got canceled due to the Baltimore riots. So
Yes.
yes, you guys hit Rock and Roll Hotel, but are you guys finally excited to come back to Baltimore?
Yeah, that was a really hard decision for us to make because I can remember being like in the room all together trying to figure out what to do in that instance, and it just kind of seemed like at the end of the day it was better to not go through with it. But ever since then we've been really wanting to come back to Baltimore, and it's kind of a bummer it even took this long, but we got caught up making an album, so we're really, really excited for the show.
Yeah.
And we're really excited to make up for the last time around. The show's been sold out for a while, so I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, we're very excited. We're gonna be attending the Baltimore show, and we're very excited to see you guys.
Awesome.
So going back to the Baltimore show, that's a 400 capacity venue.
Yeah.
And so
Uh-huh.
you guys are still kind of building your audiences up here in Baltimore, but rather in LA,
Mhm.
you guys are playing the Fonda Theater, which is 1,200. And I noticed you guys are going to like Charlotte, North Carolina, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So what's it like still trying to build up the crowds that don't know you as well when you're going to like the Fonda Theater where 1,200 people know you?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because at this point it's like the number of people, it only reflects, I suppose, how popular we are in that area. So the interesting thing about that is conversely, even a show that has 450 people at it or a show that has 300 people, sold out at it or whatever, like the Rock and Roll Hotel is another good example. It's like all the people there, they're really familiar with what's going on, and they know what's happening, and they got their tickets early, and they lined up, and they're like there to have a good time. So it really ends up just being like a really crazy fun time. Honestly, I prefer playing the smaller venues sometimes. I like to go back and forth. It is nice when we get to go to a city like Dallas or Los Angeles where we have larger followings, and those shows are always really fun. But it's nice to be able to kind of jump back and forth between the two.
Yeah, it's a nice balance, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to your album, can you tell us a little bit about your whole writing process and how you guys got to where you are with your whole music career?
Yeah, I mean, with this record, it seemed like we really wanted to sort of push the envelope forward a little bit. Our first album was something we were really proud of, and it kind of came to be in a natural way, and we kind of really had paved the road ourselves. And I think by the time we had come in to make the second record, we were a few years older. We had hundreds of shows under our belt, and we felt that we were much more aware of who we were as a band, and that we felt much stronger in our identity. And so we really felt like the task at hand was to kind of establish that and make that and put that onto a record, because we had all of these songs which we were really excited about, and the songs kept coming, and there's never a problem there. Like we've always just kept writing, but sonically we felt like we really just wanted to reestablish our identity a bit, and I think we did. I think that some people might tell you that the differences might be subtle, but they're definitely nuanced in a way to where I think there's a clear shift in mood.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of fans have noticed that, especially fans that have been following you for so long. I think it really shows, and they really appreciate it, knowing them and getting to talk to them about your music.
Yeah.
They're very grateful for it.
Yeah, it's not some of the bands that created second album. It's a very different, completely different, and it doesn't really show how their writing has matured and how they're maturing as a band and changing themselves. But definitely, Disappear Here, you can tell.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. Yeah, ultimately we're just on a big journey, and this is phase 2.
You were talking about how you guys always have songs that are usually ready and stuff. So I did talk to you after the Rock and Roll Hotel show in DC, and I asked you about Maybe We're Meant to Be Alone from Disappear Here. And you said that you wrote it when you were 16.
15.
Okay, 15. And
No, wait, you're right. No, that's a different one. That's a different one. 16. You're right.
Okay. And so I was kind of wondering, what made you choose to put that song on the album when you were 16? And then what is the process of choosing maybe some older songs or, still writing some new songs and kind of making a balance between what you want to put on the new album and how you didn't put it on the first album, which you might want to have?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to be noted that, that song and One More are the only songs from that time that were pulled back upon. You know, everything else that had been, you know, there were two gems in a pile of rough, I suppose. And but really what happened was, at the time when we made those songs, me, Gavin, and Miles were kind of playing in like punk bands, and that was a song that sort of came totally out of left field from what we were doing then as well. And it was just, I was feeling something much different, and I wanted to do something different. It just kind of happened, and it was one of those things where I always kind of felt like some kind of a connection to it, I suppose, even though it was always like, this isn't for the band. This isn't for the band. We're not going to, you know, it was just kind of a song that I held in my back pocket, I suppose. Yeah. And then, you know, the years went by. I would kind of hear it again every once in a while and be like, oh, there's something kind of cool about that. And then it just sort of came a point to when that we brought that song up again. And it was sort of like, like I said, it had been a few years, so it almost seemed ridiculous. But it was just, people would just keep mentioning it, I think. Like, we talked about it for the first album, but it was like right away we knew with our first record we didn't want like a slow jam by any means. We wanted to keep it upbeat. That was kind of like a theme we had. So with the second record, we definitely revisited it, and we thought, like, we can make this a cool song. You know, like it's obviously we've done a lot to it since those days, and we sort of like, we had a lot of fun building it. But really, it's just the reason why it stood the test of time was because at the end of the day, it felt like the bare bones of it. The song was just good.
Going back to your performances and venues and all those things, how do you feel about playing festivals and venues? How are the feelings different towards those shows?
You know, it's interesting because we're much more, I'd say, I don't know if it's comfortable, but we're much more attuned to playing, you know, shows in clubs across the country, like on tours. Like, we play festivals, but it's definitely a bit more sparse when we do. So it's always like, it always feels kind of like a field trip day, I suppose. Mm-hmm. To an extent to where it's like, all right, you're going to school or whatever, but now you're totally removed from your typical environment, and it's really exciting, and it feels like, you know, it almost feels like a weekend or something like that. So really, with touring, it's pretty much like that. It's like a field trip, and it's been said it's kind of like, it's a bit more gladiatorial because you have all these other bands playing. I often have a lot of fun because whenever I get a chance to, if it's not too hectic of a day, I'll go walk around and try and see which other bands I'm interested in, or I'll just try and stumble upon something and check something out. And it's always really inspiring to see a group or an artist that puts on a good show. And then on the other end of that, you also kind of find out which shows aren't really worth paying attention to and what's disappointing. But overall, it's just a really fun atmosphere, and you never know what you're going to get. So that's cool.
So, like, with festivals, you have to choose a certain set list, maybe more songs that are more popular rather than, you know, maybe one.
Greatest hits,
yeah, the greatest hits, definitely. But not only with that, but you have to choose your set list for just regular your own headlining shows. So you guys played 10 songs off the new record, Disappear Here, but you missed Defeated, Love Like Revenge, and How Am I Not Myself. Should fans be expecting those songs to make an appearance on the Heartbreaker tour?
I'm not sure. We're still working out the set list right now, and you know, definitely all of those songs will see the light of day at some point. But the timing is always really important with us, and we're calibrating at the moment. We're still figuring out what's happening.
Going back to shows, sorry. Do you guys plan going abroad anytime soon?
I would love to. Really, it's all about when there's enough people over there listening to the music to where we can make it feasible. But we've been like dying to head overseas. It just so happens that for some reason it's gotten like kind of picked up a little bit in America. Yeah. It's getting kind of popular here, and we're just kind of like playing here as much as we can. But the dream is one day to do all of that. There's so many different places I want to travel and see with this band. So, kind of rambling.
So going back, we just want to talk about a little bit more about the album. We know what the artwork is for Language and Perspective. It's the Xeon Sun. Is that how you say it? Xeon?
The Zia Sun,
Zia
yeah.
Sun, sorry. Zia Sun. And you've explained that in many interviews before. But we were kind of wondering what the Disappear Here artwork had to do around the album.
Yeah, well, we were at a point to where we were having extreme difficulties pinning down an album cover. We had a concept that we kept going back to and trying to make happen, and it wasn't working. We were working with different artists, and every time it seemed like we were starting to go somewhere, something else would fall through, and you know, we would be back to the drawing board. And it was like a really, really stressful process right at the very end, right at the deadline. And such was the process with the first album. Actually, that was another thing to where it was just like the very last image that came through at the very end. It was like everyone saw it and was like, "That's it. Okay, sigh of relief." Well, similarly with this album, though not quite as similar, that we were at this point where we sort of felt we were at a dead end. This one image had come along, and just immediately it really excited me. Like I remember thinking at first like it wasn't at all what we had in mind, because the original concept we had, I think, was a bit more like, for instance, how the first album, the design is quite central, and it's it sort of drives your eye right to the center of the page, and it's like that's what's happening. But with this, it's kind of the image is it's almost like a blank slate to an extent, and all of the graphic that is there, it's like in the corner, so it's much more subtle. And I think we always talk about being bold and having, bold artwork and bold sounding music or whatever it is. So it wasn't what we had in mind, and that kind of threw all of us off guard at first. But then I remember listening to it with the album. I remember we brought in a few options to our manager, and he was kind of the first person that looked at us and just said like, yo, this is really cool. And so that made us all think of it differently, because like I said, it wasn't what we had anticipated. So now we were thinking about it a bit differently and going, I remember listening to the record and just looking at the image and going, okay, this is cool. And so then we all started to talk about it, and everyone had different ideas as to what it meant. Some people were sort of concerned that it seemed as if we were pretty like promoting some kind of like glamorous lifestyle. Like it looked like it was a dead chick under blankets or whatever it is. And other people had different feelings about it, and everyone had strong feelings one way or another. And I think that was also a bit interesting to me. And to the rest of the guys, is like, well, we can't agree on what this picture even is.
Yeah,
and that's something to talk about, right? So we just knew it was the right cover from that point. There's always got to be that moment to where it just clicks, and if it doesn't do that, it's not the right cover. So we feel like we got the right cover this time again.
Yeah, it definitely fits.
Yeah, it leaves an open perspective for everyone.
People create theories, and like, this song means this, and that's why that's the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Also, we'd want to ask you, what's one of your favorite songs to play live and on tours?
I've been really enjoying playing Outskirts of Paradise live on this last tour. I think that's it's a bit fun. It's like our first like kind of, it's not really a punk song, but it definitely has like that kind of a beat. And so it always feels a bit fresh in the set. And that one, I always have fun in Sleep Paralysis, because I get to set the guitar down and kind of go out into the crowd or what have you. And I guess those are two highlights. Actually, you know what? Let's say Rear View.
Okay.
Rear View, Outskirts of Paradise, and Sleep Paralysis are probably my favorite play.
So speaking of sleep paralysis, actually, the first time that both Sara and I saw you, Bad Sons, was at the Flood Tour with Honey and The Neighborhood. And for me, sleep paralysis really struck me, because you came into the crowd and it was just so shocking. But it was really, like, it drove me into your music, because I was like, the lead singer is really cool.
Yeah.
So, it like...
Awesome.
Like, especially to someone that's first seeing you, it's a great experience.
Yeah.
And
it's a bit intense, right?
Yeah, but it's fun to interact with the artist when you don't always get to
have that like intimate show. Most of the times it's very, there's a separate line sometimes, and having that intimate kind of atmosphere feels really welcoming and makes you want to go back.
Yeah, that's what we're having a lot of fun right now, so we like to keep everyone feeling involved.
Also, about your like stage, like decorated with that glitter sign of yours, what was the whole process of like finding out what you wanted to do, as in like the aesthetic of the show and all those things?
Well, we knew that we wanted to bring the personality and the vibe and the feeling of the album cover and the album itself into each city every night. So we wanted to kind of have like a very clear blank slate. Like if you look at any picture of any show on any night of the tour, it looks like you could be in the same room, just because we wanted to have a very striking and simple layout, I suppose. When we had the idea of, we talked about whenever they'll put on a disco ball at a show during Salt or something like that. Like that's always a really cool moment. So we thought, well, what if we had a disco ball, but if instead we just had it in the shape of the Zia symbol?
Yeah.
And so then we just kind of ran with it. We had our friend who works in like an art department, and he built it for us. That's nice. We were just like sick. So, cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of like tours and stuff, also, what was the craziest event that's maybe happened on the Disappear Here tour, or maybe a tour before, like maybe a fan experience, or just a mishap that happened with you guys?
Well, it wasn't technically on a tour, but this was in summer of 2014, and we played a show in Mammoth, and we were just kind of like messing around. We were just playing. We had like an acoustic show at some like sports bar after an event at like some like X Games. I don't even remember. It was such a really bizarre context, but we were playing in this club, and there was this homeless guy in the club, and we were playing, and he started like shouting in the middle of the room, and kind of like chanting. And so I thought, well, what a great opportunity, and I actually invited him onto the stage. and we sort of, the four of us made up a song on the spot based around his chants, and he chanted along with us into the microphone, and it was a really special experience.
That's really cool. I mean,
and there's video footage of that somewhere too.
Yeah, we'll like it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. When you're traveling for tours and all those, the bus rides and all those things, what do you typically like listen to on, as in like albums and all those things? What do you typically listen to?
It depends. When we're on the road, a lot of the times, if we're like riding in the van or something, I'll be like reading. So I'll be listening to soothing like ambient music or something like that. I'm a really big fan of Moby in general. Like when I was a little kid, like I just got like the album Play was just, I was obsessed with it, and I just heard it all the time, and it was just like such a huge part of my life. And so now it's kind of like at this point where he has so many great records. Him and Brian Eno both make a bunch of great ambient albums, which I like to listen to. And yeah, it's just kind of a bit soothing, I suppose.
So
there's so much loud music every night.
Yeah. Does his music help with your like driving your lyrical inspiration, or just making music? Then, since you listen to him so often.
The thing is, I've gotten to this point now to where it's like I feel like with Disappear Here, that album was sort of me kind of, to an extent, finding my voice more as a lyricist too. And so now at this point, kind of having like, it's all about like building to a style or whatever it is. So I don't really like, you know what I mean? At this point, there's something that's established there, so I have something to build upon. It's not like I'm looking for who I can, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. But with lyrics, it tends to become like, I don't know how to answer this question, I guess. I've thought about this, but never really in a way that I've put it, because I know how I feel about it. I know the way that I go through this process, but it is kind of interesting to talk about. I guess it's like when it comes to lyrics, I'm super objective to where it's just like, if I hear a phrase or a line, it could be in any song. It could be in the music that I'm listening to in my own personal time for enjoyment. I could be like out at a whatever it is, a farmer's market or something, and there's a country song playing, and there's like a lyric that jumps out at you. You know what I mean? It could be anything, but whatever it is, that's what I like about lyrics, is it doesn't really matter so much what kind of music you're listening to. So sometimes it's like, but that kind of almost just is like an incentive, like, oh man, like this guy's pretty clever, like you got to work on it. You know what I mean? Like, so that happens sometimes.
What advice do you give to artists who are just beginning in this whole process? Bands, local bands like here in Baltimore, what do you recommend, or like any advice you have to give to them?
Yeah, I mean, just figure out what it is that you like to do, just have fun, and ultimately it's like, if you're just starting in a band, this coming from somebody who's been playing in bands for like over 10 years, you're just starting in a band, you're playing in a new band, you're having fun with your friends, it's going to be so much fun, you're going to have like the best time, but you're probably not going to be very good for a very long time.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't discourage you, and if you really like doing it, you just got to push through and write like a whole ass ton of really bad songs, and then maybe eventually you'll write a good song.
Yeah.
But you're going to be bad, and it's going to be fun.
One last question. What do you want the fans to expect for these coming shows that you have? For the Outskirts of Paradise tour, for the Heartbreaker tour, what do you want them to expect?
Just a really, really fun and a good time. At the end of the day, I think that's always kind of the goal, is that we want everyone that goes home to be like, wow, I don't want to leave, or that was amazing, that was more fun than I thought it could have been, or we just want it to be an experience that can stick out in people's lives, I suppose.
Yeah.
Definitely. So thank you so much for your time, Christo.
Thanks very much for speaking with me.
And we'll see you March 11th at your Baltimore show.
All right, great. See you then.
Have a great day.
All right, thank you.
You too. Bye.